What's going on, Round Up homies? It is good to see you guys. It's Sunday night. It's Dan Borrero and me, Dan Borrero and me, like to come on here and give you a few moments of time of our time and share with you what is working in the real estate business, what we're doing, tips and strategies to help with your business. Make sure we're live. Did I hit the right thing?
We're live. It says here we're live.
Okay, cool. We're live. Public. Oh, okay, cool. So today we're gonna be opening up. I'm coming to New York, y'all. I'm coming to NYC. I'm gonna be hanging out with Dan Borrero, and we're gonna be doing a dinner. We're gonna be sharing information, talking about Private Monday, creative real estate financing deals. Dan's gonna be talking about his landlording stuff, tenant stuff, and things that is working for him in the business right now. Thank you for having me up there, Dan.
No, man, thank you for being here. I always, whenever you're in town, man, I love the opportunity to. I love the fact that you call me up and you're like, "Yo, let's do something for the people, right? Let's try to put something together that'll make it intimate," and that's what we've done.
Yeah, man. So July 10th, 6 o'clock. The links in the show notes below. You're going to be able to hang out with me, Dan, other real estate entrepreneurs, like-minded people, a sounding board. Dan, what I'm learning is a lot of people don't have a sounding board. Even for me, when I get an idea, I'm like, who can I even call about this? I got Dan Borrero to call. I got other people I call. Who can you talk to bounce ideas off to sharpen your professional skills out here in the game?
You
So
got
that's
to
what we
put
do.
yourself in the room, and usually you have to put yourself in a room with people that are more advanced than you are, whether that be financially or or experience wise. So sometimes it's uncomfortable, you know.
Sometimes, a
Yeah,
lot of times,
yeah,
a
it's
lot
very
of times.
uncomfortable. But every time I put myself in that uncomfortable situation, I always come out, better for it.
Getting stretched.
Yeah,
They get stretched, Dan. It's so weird. I'll never forget Jim Rohn says, rubber bands don't work if they're not stretched. The only way they work is if they gotta get stretched.
this is true.
So put yourself in a room. The link is below, right in the show notes, and you're gonna be. I'm coming to New York. I'm hanging out with Dan. I look forward to meeting you and just learning and networking. You never know who you're gonna meet in Newark, New Jersey on that day.
Nope, you don't know. You don't know, guys.
So last time we meet, some people hooked up. They got you might meet a partner, you might be a
That was actually
contractor.
the first time we did it, Chris. There were three people that hooked up that are still partnering. They've done like 8 or 9 flips already. One
Yeah,
guy was a money guy. The other one was he manages buildings for other investors, and the other guy was a contractor.
that's
And they
important.
hooked up. It just so happens they sat next to each other, and to this day they're still partners. And it's like almost 3 years later.
It's important, man. You got to meet new people. You have to meet. And Patrick Bet David, I never forget, he said, millionaires master recruiting. We have to learn how to recruit. Now, that's not necessarily getting people to work for you. You got to recruit friends and business partners too. Okay. So all of
So,
this is just
Chris,
skills.
tell them because I know I tell you to speak about this often, but tell them about the time you told me that you bought my friendship and I was insulted over it until you explained it to me.
Yeah. So I put myself in a room, taking time, put myself on a plane. I spent thousands of dollars to go to a training, hotel, car, all this stuff, and just to meet. I knew guys because I knew this particular training it cost so much. Like I know if I'm willing to spend thousands and other people are too, then I'm going to be on the same vibration and the same frequencies as they are. And you know what? Those principles worked for me. So I was able to meet guys like Dan and a couple other dudes in that room.
And as a result of that, Chris, so he paid to be in that room, so he literally paid for my friendship, right?
There you go.
And vice versa, because I spent a shitload of money being on that room too. So the thing is, like, now we're not telling you got to go spend thousands of dollars. We're not saying that to the public. You do that as you scale is when you spend that kind of money. But that doesn't mean you don't put yourself in a room for a couple of $100 or a lot of different free events that are available. Put yourself in a room.
That's right. Look, somebody says, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Have to meet new people 100%. There you go. Got off for health reasons. Good for you, Thrive Card University. Okay. So Dan, we were talking earlier about the market, and put together you and I have over 50 years of experience right about that. And I want just to ask you, what are you seeing in the market? What are you seeing? What KPIs are you seeing this the
I'm
indicators?
starting to see not market corrections, not market crashes. There's some areas of the country that truly did not did not there was no fundamental reason for the prices to jump up the way they did, other than cheap mortgage money. So
FOMO.
right,
FOMO.
the reality is when people were buying properties at 2.5%, 3%, 4%, they weren't buying property; they were buying money,
Finance.
right? But what happens? The prices went up so dramatically because the interest rates were so low. And then they had that FOMO type of anxiety where they felt that they were missing out. They bid up properties ridiculously high,
Mhm.
and we're starting to see the market correct itself to the property where the value should be. Some of it's 8%, 3%, 6%. Some of it's 30%, 20%. Depending on what part of the country you're looking at. But we're not. I don't see a market crash like we saw in 2008. No.
I'm not saying either. And even where I'm at, Dan, we didn't really necessarily have a crash. It just slowed down. I mean, nothing really ever really just went to the bottom here
Yep.
in 2008. So
What
I
I
don't
am
know.
seeing is the rents continuously going up because it's just not enough of it. And then there were people who've been sitting on the sidelines for 3 years waiting for that crash to come, and instead the prices of real estate went up. So if you were like at 500,000, and
We live next to the airport or something.
that's the first time I've ever heard a plane fly over my property.
It might be they might be spraying for mosquitoes or something late at night. They sometimes they do
Nah,
that.
they don't do that here.
Oh no.
That was a jet plane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard that. It's kind of scary.
All right.
But in any event, what were we just talking about, Chris?
You're talking about what you don't see. You know, rents are still going up. You're not
So
seeing.
I'm starting to see rents still going up because a lot of people that were waiting for the market crash, like when the prices were at 500,000, now they're 650, 700, right? So now they can't even afford it because they have to save that much more money, right? So those people aren't buying homes. Then you have in the South, in the Sun Belt, you have companies like Chase and BlackRock and other big companies coming out of Canada, basically Wall Street buying starter homes, that normally people would have been buying at under 300, but because they're buying out the whole community for rental purposes,
It's
now
crazy.
those properties are at like 400, 450, and it's unreasonable for many, right? And then you have the high interest rates. So a combination of those three things is making it
Good God.
difficult for people to go out and buy a house. Plus, in many areas, there's low inventory because we have a shortage of new homes. So between those four things, it's causing more renters to stay longer as renters. And then, of course, when people graduate from college and they want to move out their house, those are new renters. So as a result of higher demand on the rental sector, my rents are still going up.
Dan, let me ask you. Like when I look, I have empathy for people that are first time and even second time home buyers. Like I think about myself, right? I'm gonna frame this up. When I look at the market, I'm locked and loaded, ready to buy anything cash closing a week, right? And that's not a Chris Haskins thing. I just want to say that was where I have made that who I am today, right? I almost I feel guilty a little bit then because I know I'm ready to buy. I can buy almost any piece of real estate that comes across my desk, as opposed to the average home buyer has to go get financing, right? And I want to make sure that I'm giving an empathetic view of this. So I never stopped like buying. I knew I was still the numbers had to be right. But Dan, you and I don't live in the have to go to the loan, have to get a loan and wait 45 days and down payment and credit and all that stuff. But I'm thinking about the people that didn't buy over the last 3 or 4 years, Dan. I'm empathetic. I'm just like, they're still waiting for this crash that hasn't come. And I just don't know. I don't even know I don't even have a
So you know
response for
what?
them.
Listen, the reality is this: life is all about choices, and life is all about taking risk, right? So if they waited and the numbers creeped up, that was a risk, right? That was a choice. In my case, I've made that same mistake. I've been holding back. In 2017, I did 190 closings. Last year I only did 45 closings. This
Wow.
year I'm only going to do maybe about 35 closings because I too am sitting back and being very selective, right?
But you're still buying. My point is, my point is, you're still buying. Though. You didn't stop.
We didn't stop, but we had to slow down because based on the numbers not being effective for our business model.
Hmm.
Yours, mine, anybody who's in the business. Look, the reality is this: we are in a different position because we took risk. We are in a different position because we took the time out to educate ourselves. We are in a different position because we went to a lot of free networking meetups when we couldn't afford to pay for them. Right? We are in a different position because we lived below our means when everybody else was buying, real expensive designer clothes and bags, or
And
not everyone
houses.
else, but many were
And
going on
houses.
vacations, right? That they couldn't afford, or house
That's true.
that a house
You're
that
right.
was way too much house for their
You're right.
budget, right? For what they could afford.
You're right.
So I don't feel guilty for me being in
That's
this position, and neither should you, because we worked our asses off. We sacrificed. We went without. Um, you know, Case in point, we spoke about this earlier. You were living in an 1,100 square foot house, and people come to see you, knowing the deals you're making, and saying, "Are you crazy?" Whereas
That's
now you
true.
live in a
That's
4,000
true.
square foot house,
That's
but
true.
your mortgage is only 33% of the value of the house, right?
That's true.
So,
That's true.
you know, again, I don't, I will never feel guilty for my success because it wasn't handed to me, and I wasn't lucky about it. It took a lot of hard work, and neither should you feel guilty for it.
Well, I just and I'm not going to stay on woe is me. I just want to make sure that my roundup family understands this shit for me. This didn't happen overnight. Like they see the screen. Then all I see is you on the screen. I wasn't with you in 1989 when you was
So you know what I tell people?
digging dirt.
I'm so lucky that I was a 35-year overnight success. That's how lucky I am.
Y'all give that a thumbs up. But then I just once again, man, when I look back, I'm like, anyone could have raised the private money that I've raised. Anyone could have wholesale those deals. It's like anyone can do this, but they
I
have
tell
to make a
everybody this
decision.
is not a business for smart people. Case in point, I do well, and I'm not the smart guy. I want the entire audience to know this, and I used to be very
You do.
I used to hold this information back, and I don't hold it back anymore. I was a kid who used to get picked up with the little school bus, the yellow school bus. I was a special ed kid, right? That couldn't read, speech impediment, stuttered. Um, you
Damn,
know,
you sick, yo.
so if I could do this, anybody could do this. You don't have to be smart. You just have to have the wherewithal and the focus and the I mean a really strong hate in your heart. Like
Your
in my
current
case, it was
situation.
hate because I was tired of everyone thinking I couldn't do, but I knew I could do. I just had to work harder
Mm,
or be taught differently. So, anybody, this is the best part about this country, Chris. This country may have a lot of flaws, but the one flaw it doesn't have is that it allows us to work as hard as we want towards our goal.
that's true.
It allows us to sacrifice as much as we want financially or time away from family members, or not going to parties or not going dancing or not going to a club or not going to the movies or the theater or to dinner, whatever that is, right? Um, you know, is if we could focus on our dreams and we can make this happen as long as, but now this is the thing. There's no success still isn't promised to you. The only thing
Nope.
that's promised is that we have the right and the freedom to work as hard as we want.
All as you want to. No doubt. That's true. We got some questions here. Y'all put your questions in the chat and get the information for July 10th. I'm coming to New York. The information is right there in the video description just to go check it out. Thrivecart University says, Why not focus on new cons and then renting out to Section 8? Dan, you want to tackle that?
I'm not sure. What is he asking? Why not
Focus
start
on new
focusing
construction
on new
and
construction?
then rent to Section 8.
I don't particularly like new construction. I've done it. It's not my thing. I love doing rehab with total gut outs, like on brownstone.
Why don't you like new cons?
I don't like dealing. Well, I don't like dealing with city officials. That, you know, even though on a total gut job, I got to still deal with them and with permitting and so forth.
You just hard to deal with.
It's not as difficult because that's just my personality. When I have to deal with a government official, my blood pressure goes through the roof. It's just stupidity most of the time. So again, there's nothing wrong with that.
People, man. Don't scare the people with that. They got
No. Listen, the reality is, I know guys that do very well with that, extremely well. But that's their personality type. So what I say to people is, do what fits your personality, and I do what fits my personality. I don't mind. You know, I ain't gonna lie to you. I still get excited when I walk on a job, and all the dust is coming out the windows from the walls coming down, right, with the structure light and the plaster, you know, and I could smell like the freshness of cut 2x4s when they're framing, you know. I still get excited with that, you know. So that's what I like to do.
I don't want to see that mess. Yeah, don't keep me. I get excited about smelling money at the bank. I don't want to see that mess. But so I guess when he's talking, I do new constructions, but I don't do them to rent out. I do them to flip them and sell them. I don't have it's all, if you want to do new cons to build and rent out,
that's a whole different type of construction.
Not only construction, but you better master financing. You better forget the real estate part. Once you get the financing set up, you got low interest rate, you can build, rent it out, do whatever you want.
Yeah, not only that, listen, and then he was asking about Section 8. I don't have a problem with Section 8.
Yeah, Section
8, you know, they pay. If you were a Section 8 landlord during the pandemic, you were good. You were safe.
That was me. Yep. So all my joints, I paid my joints off during the pandemic because there was nothing else to do. I'm like, I got the money coming in. I'm like, damn, what am I gonna do with the money? I can't go nowhere. I can't spend it on nothing. I can't go out. I can't party. So I just put all the money paid the debt off. Young celebrity, how long did you sacrifice? Then you want to tell me about some of your sacrifices?
So I've sacrificed literally until about 4 years ago, and I'm 61 now. Wow. That's just because it's my personality. Now I live in a really nice house. My house has been paid off for 20 years already. Well, not 20, maybe about 17 years. But the point is that, and I drive really nice cars, but I'm not driving Mercedes-Benz or BMWs. I drive a really nice truck. My wife drives a new car that we lease for her every 3 years. But we're not extravagant people, right? So I don't, you know, am I taking a lot of vacations now? I sure do. I was just in Puerto Rico for almost a whole month in April, going away again in October. Yeah. So the point is, you know, that was just my personality because I wanted to keep feeding my business because I get high on feeding my business. I get high every time I do a better deal. That's my enjoyment, right? But, you know, now there's other things that I enjoy. So, but I would say on average, at least 10 to 12 years, depending on the business that you're in. If you're in the real estate business, you're going to have to feed your business at least 12 to 15 years. You know, you got to feed your business, guys. I just literally bought myself a Rolex watch this weekend.
What? Yeah, bro, you got a Rollie?
Chris, you know with me how, and that's because my brother was with me. He was like, "Come on, stop being so cheap. Buy that watch," you know. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the point is, I've never had a nice watch like that in my life, right? You know, I could afford to go buy 20 of those with no problems, but it's just not who I am. So I want everyone to know it's different for everyone.
It is.
You know, like, it's like when people tell me, you know, you feel rich yet? And I'm like, no, but I did feel rich. I want everyone to realize, and Chris, man, I know you're going to back me up with this. I was watching an interview with a very wealthy person, and someone asked him when he started to feel rich. And he said, when my adult kids still want to come on vacation with us, and when my adult kids still want to come home for Sunday dinner with my wife and I, that's how I know I'm rich. You know, so rich is not always monetarily wise. You know, you can be rich with health and rich with family value.
Good point. So, Who asked that question? For me, it was about 15 years that sacrifice. Yeah, living in 1100. I lived in an 1100 square foot. At first, I've lived in a 700 square foot property, which I haven't even told you all about. But then my wife almost got a divorce. She almost left me. So it was a big sacrifice. My wife used to come home like then she'd come home about an hour after she got out of work. I'm like, babe, why you come home so late? I'm looking at apartments. I'm like, damn, this really stings, yo. Damn, she was gonna move out, yo. I ain't go get my master's to live in it. So my wife has her master's. So you do what you got to deal with, man.
I hear you.
But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we understand. For me, and we'll move on. I felt like my life was this slingshot, right? I'm just pulling back, pulling back, pulling back. And I kept telling my wife, I'm like, oh, babe, I can let go now, but just let your boy pull back year after year after year after year after year after year. And finally, we were able to kind of hit it.
Yeah, and look, so Chris was sacrificed 15 years, right? But now he lives in a 4,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
He takes his family to Dubai for vacations.
Yeah.
So he was just at Virginia Tech, right? Today, taking your kids.
Yep. But I want everybody to know, I've been eating dirt, dude. I promise y'all. Y'all see these pretty faces here, man. Look like we just kind of woke up into this mess. I promise you, y'all. I have worked 15-hour days, man, for 15 years. So, all right, let's move on. It ain't happening overnight. And you know what, Dan? I'm really don't like watching these these social media gurus with this get paid fast thing, dude.
And like there's a lot of like guys, come with me and I'll show you how to. In 90 days, you'll have 4 rental units. All right, good. You're gonna have 4 rental units. What are they cash flowing? Anybody could buy property.
Anybody. That's the easiest part. Welby says
the easiest part is buying it. Now try maintaining it.
There you go. All right. We got a question here. Mortgage broker. Matt Pryor, what's up? Get around people that can teach you something and also get friends who are where you want to be. There you go. Get you some. You know when my life changed? I got some multimillionaire phone numbers in my cell phone. That is when my life changed.
I realized when I was a kid, not everybody who's your friend is your friend. Because you happen to grow up next door to somebody or on the same block as somebody, or even relatives, right? That doesn't mean they're actually good for you. And maybe they actually wish you well, but that doesn't mean like they're in a position to advise you on anything that you on where you may want to get to. So unfortunately, when you start to grow, you have to get out of that room that you were in and put yourself in a different room. And as a result of that, you're going to lose friends and family. You're going to lose contact with them because they didn't want to grow with you. And that's not their fault. It's not your fault.
My fault.
It's just life.
What it is. I'm doing a video, Dan. I finally understand no one wants to see me get ahead. I finally figured it out. So the other day, I was driving, man, and I saw somebody in front of me merge on the highway. I mean, they got off of the interstate to go on the road. And the people were driving, Dan. They wouldn't let them in. I had an epiphany. I'm like, these are the same people we serve buying real estate. They have their insecurities. They've got scarcity mindset, and it's not bad. Like, do they do that in New York too? When you got a single line on, they will actually do their best not to let you in. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know what? This is the majority of America. They don't want to see you get ahead. And we're not even talking about financially. We're talking about getting ahead on a street.
So you ever go crabbing?
I've seen it done. Never done it before, though.
Okay. So I remember when I was a kid, I went crabbing with a relative of mine. And we had caught like 6 crabs. And every time one crab would get to the top, trying to get out the bucket, and he put his craw on the top to pull himself up, the other crabs were hanging on to his bottom claw. And they pull him back down. Right?
I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about
that. My relative looked at me and he said, That's life.
Oh, wow.
That is life. And that stood in my mind. I was only maybe 10 years old.
Mm.
And that's till today. I remember exactly his facial expression. I remember where we were exactly at. And I remember that we had 6 crabs. And he kept telling me, don't worry, he's not going to get out. Those other crabs won't let him. They don't want to stay behind.
That's rough, man.
But it was
Rough.
a learning lesson, and that's true. So what I believe is that there was who Colin Powell is, I'm sure, and Colin Powell, one of his books, he had written that he would go back to his old neighborhood because his parents, no matter how much money he had, no matter how many times he tried to get him out of the neighborhood, they wanted to stay there. So he had to keep going back to visit his parents.
Mm.
And every time he went back, he'd see some guys, and they'd tell him how lucky he was. And it wasn't until he was 45 years old that he stopped getting angry about that. And that's when he realized, he said, that that's what they need to tell him
Tell him.
so that they could feel better about their situation, because they could have done the same exact work that he did. They could have sacrificed just as much, and they would be out of there living a better life. So, but that's what they needed to say to him to feel better about themselves. And I remember saying to
That's called
myself,
projecting. That's called projecting. Go ahead.
so I remember saying to myself, it was an epiphany, because that had just happened to me that day, and I was so angry. And I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to get angry anymore. I understand. I feel bad for them. Until today, because I want everyone to know, I started buying in my old neighborhood when I graduated from college. I went back to my old neighborhood,
Mm.
and it wasn't a good neighborhood, but that's where I felt comfortable. And I thought it was strategically a great place to invest because of its location to the Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan Bridge and other neighborhoods that were
Mhm.
starting to boom. And I would, so I still see a lot of my friends that I grew up with that are not doing well, still living in the projects. And, I don't call them friends. I call them people I grew up with, or acquaintances that I grew up with in the neighborhood.
Acquaintances,
And
yeah.
they'll tell me how lucky I am, and I says, yeah, I am very lucky.
Just keep it
And
moving.
I don't get angry. I
Keep it
don't get
moving.
angry.
Well, I want everybody here tonight to understand that I don't consider myself the smartest guy, and I know damn sure enough, no damn, neither one of us. We're really not that. We are so dumb. Let me tell you how dumb we are. We're just willing to work all day and all night.
Yeah.
I'm just willing to work all the time. I mean,
You know what I tell people when people, how did you beat so and so? They got more money. I said, I outworked them.
I'm willing to work all day.
Willing to work.
That's so weird. I asked my daughter. She goes, "Dad, all my life I thought you were just a guy in your office playing video games all the time." Like she doesn't. She knows I'm here. I'm in the office all day long. So, all right, Ramon, with the loan mods, partial claims. I don't know what that is, and things to throttle foreclosures, meaning ramp them up. How do you see it unfolding or coming back to bite us in the near future? That's a good question there, Ramon. Where you coming from, buddy? Give me your state, your city.
I think there are signs that we're going to see more foreclosures coming on market, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere remotely close to 2008.
Same
And
here.
again, it's just an opportunity. Look, for those people that were foolish enough to get variable arms, variables with arms 5 years
Trouble.
later, and I don't understand why they would do that, especially when rates were below 5%. Um, now rates are hovering at 8%, and some depending on the loan. That's major, so that provides opportunities for people that prepared, for people that analyze the data, for people that were stocking up, the dollars to get ready for the opportunities. So
Yeah,
some people will hurt and some people will flourish.
that's just how it works, Ramon. Period. You guys, make sure you get registered up. We got a few seats left for 10% off. July 10th. Dan and I are having our dinner meetup. I'm going to be in New York, coming down to Newark, New Jersey. So we would love to meet you, hang out with you, help put an action plan together for you and your real estate business for this summer.
And remember, you go to danielborrerojr.com or chrishaskins.com, and the link is there as well.
Right, yep. They're on YouTube now. Good questions here. Some people don't want to see succeed. I know that. Darling Dale says, "Do you guys have mentors all the way?" Dan,
My biggest mentor to me was my dad. Not about real estate, but just in life, uh, character, as well as in business in general. My father had a bodega for 30 years, so that's where I learned how to negotiate with vendors, and that's where I learned how to a lot of skill sets that I use in my real estate career now. Meaning, like how to body language tells me a lot about people. Um, the way people address, the way they speak. I learned all that
mm,
behind my father's counter.
sweet.
And as far as work ethics, I learned that from my dad. So that was my biggest. My father used to tell me, as long as you don't have to be the smartest guy, but you got to be the guy who's willing to outwork everyone else, and you'll succeed.
Don't I didn't get mentors till later in the game, to like 15, 16, which I was a dummy for not. But yeah. Petra's view. Did we speak about the Chicago flipping couple problem? What's that, Dan?
I'm not sure about that.
Chicago flipping couple. Is there something going on up there? Flop or flip. Launch new show together. I don't know. Petrina, tell us a little more about that. Are you seeing? Okay, Ramon says, "Are you seeing more no equity deals come through your pipeline from homeowners who bought at the top?" Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, way
yeah,
more.
there's the numbers are not making sense.
Unless you're going to buy.
I had one deal where I put in an offer, and the guy was like, "If I take you off, I'm gonna have to come to the table with 125,000." I said, "Well, so probably." I said, "But I can't help you. I mean, I can't buy based on your problems. I got to buy based on what's profitable."
Let's stay here for a minute, Dan, because you know what? I love it when people say, "Well, I already lowered it down from XYZ." Don't you love it when they're like, "Well, I'm asking 400, but I wanted 450, but now I'm down." I want to say, what they got to do with me? But Dan, don't you love it when they say that?
I mean, it's kind of tough because I feel bad for them because they're in a bad situation financially. But at the end of the day, I mean, we try to help people, but some people would, the numbers are just so far apart. We can't help them. What I do tell them is, I said, listen, put it into a short sale, and I'll buy it on a short sale. If you know,
Oh man.
but I
Mm,
mean, and I'll help them navigate that as well with the attorney and the realtor and. But at the end of the day, we could only do what we could do. The numbers have got to make sense.
that's right. Seller financing, Matthew, you're right. Numbers do, money does go on trees with seller financing. The CEO, Dan, are you doing your Wednesday meeting still?
I am, but for the summer months, we're doing it once a month because I too want to enjoy the summer. So yes, we are still doing it, but only once a month for the summer months. We go full throttle again once a week, every
It's
Wednesday
challenging.
on September.
It's hard to do this stuff. You want to travel. The CEO says, shout out to both of us. We share a lot of game. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dan. Both of us,
Much
we do our
appreciated.
best. Yeah. Um,
Take one more, Chris, 'cause it's starting to rain out here.
I ran on you. Okay, cool. Let's see. Partial claims. More cities in Houston. Partial claims. Oh, that's it. No more questions. Dan. So July 10th, we'll see you guys. It's in the show notes. Just click on the link, get registered up. We'd love to have dinner with you. Dinner, we're taking care of dinner. It's a 3-course meal. It's going to be a very nice restaurant. Dan's going to be in the building. You get to meet Dan Borrero.
Get to meet Chris Haskins, and it's unlimited wine, beer, soda. The meals are incredible. It's a full course meal. It's hors d'oeuvres. It's the meal. It's dessert. The service is white glove service,
No
and you're going to be in
questions.
the room with other people, like-minded people, and we're keeping it to 25 people, keeping it very small because we want to be able to give you our undivided attention.
That's right. I look forward to seeing you. Okay. Round up family. I'll see you soon. Peace.
Take care, Chris. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Dan.